Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode on my channel, Qlik Tips. Today, we're going to walk step by step through how to create a Qlik application, starting from the script editor and moving all the way to building a clean, beginner friendly data model. Before we touch anything in Qlik, the very first thing we must do is understand the business requirement. This step is essential because everything we load, model, or visualize depends on what the business actually needs. And here's something important to remember: the key success factor of any dashboard or e-board is its ability to respond perfectly to the customer's need. If the app doesn't answer their questions, even the most powerful visualizations is useless, so always start with clarity. For today's example, we'll imagine we're building an application for sales department. Their goal is simple. They want to analyze sales on a daily basis and they expect a set of KPIs and visualizations they can use immediately. So what do they need to see? The overall customer base size, this will be displayed as a KPI. Seasonality and revenue trends will create a line chart showing revenue by month to detect the growth or the decline. The top and bottom performing divisions ranked by revenue. And finally, the best selling products based on net sales. Another important point when gathering requirements is to ask the business which filters they want on the dashboard. For this exercise, we'll include time, region, and product category. Now that we clearly understand what the application needs to deliver, let's get started. Now let's start with the first technical step, loading the data, starting with the load editor. In this step, our goal is simply is to bring data into Qlik. There are many ways to do this. You can load data from CSV file, Excel files, databases using data connections. However, for this exercise, I want to keep very simple, especially for beginners. So instead of connecting to external files, I directly load the data inside the app using online loads. And for this exercise, we have sales table, customers table, products tables, and salesperson's table. For this exercise, I have the simplest and the most powerful way to organize data, which is the star schema. So, what is the star schema? Imagine we're tracking sales. We have two kind of informations: the event, what actually happens, example transaction, sales, quantity, and so on, and the context, which is the who, what, when, and where of that event. The star schema clearly separates those into two tables type. The fact table, which contains the event and which is the center of the model, and the dimension table, which completes the fact table with the context. That's why it is surrounding it. So the fact table, we can find the sales amount, the quantity, the profit, etc., the dates also. And in the dimension tables, we can have a descriptive attributes that gives context to the numbers in the fact table. Example, product dimension, product name, category, customer dimension like customer name, city, region, and so on. And part three, we'll move to data transformation. This is where we prepare our data so it can respond exactly to the business requirements we defined at the beginning. At this stage, we focus on creating the measures and preparing the fields that will be used in our KPIs, charts, and filters. In our case, the business wants to analyze the gross sales, net sales, discount amount, and total revenue. So we need to create these measures directly in the sales table. The sales table is our fact table. Why? Because it contains all the key IDs that link sales data to the other table, such as customers, products, and salespersons. Another important part of data transformation is data preparation. Since we want to analyze revenue over time and display it by month, we need to create all the data fields required by the application. So for the sales date, we will drive the full day, the year, and the month. These fields will be used as for both filters and to build our visualizations such as the revenue trend line chart. But keep in mind, in the real cases, we create a calendar. Maybe I will create this in other videos, but for now, I will just add the date attributes in the fact table. Now let's move to the customer dimension table. In this step, our main task is to format the date field correctly. To do this, we will be using the date function in the script. We also use a resident load, which allows us to transform data that has already been loaded in Qlik. This is a very common and powerful technique, especially when you want to clean or format fields without reloading the source. For the customer table, this is all we need to do. I want to highlight something very important here. Dates are critical in any application. Always pay close attention to date format and make sure they are consistent across your model. Also remember that date format, it's not only a technical choice, it's a user experience decision. Different users may expect different formats, so always confirm with your business users which format they want to see on the e-board. Getting dates right from the beginning will save you a lot of issues later. Now everything is ready for the customer table, so let's move to the product table. For this table, we'll follow the same loading logic as before. However, in this case, we need to create two additional measures that will be useful for the business analysis and the business requirement. The first one is the profit margin, and the second one is the margin percentage. These two measures will help us quickly identify which products are the most profitable for the third graph that we need to create. Once these calculations are done, we will drop the temporary product table and keep only the final product table in our data model. I also want to mention something very important here. Before loading any table, always use the non-concatenate keyword. This ensures that Qlik does not automatically concatenate tables with similar structures, which could lead to unwanted results in your data model. Being careful with concatenation is a key best practice when building clean and reliable Qlik application. Now let's continue with the salesperson table. For this table, the transformation is very simple. We will only reformat the hire date. This is exactly the same approach we used earlier for the customer table. Again, we will use the appropriate formatting function in this script to make sure the data is clean and consistent. Now we will be moving to part 3, which is fixing errors and cleaning the data model. As you can see, we initially created a profit margin and a profit margin percentage in the product table. However, since only the fact table should contain measures, we need to clean this part of the model. To do so, we left join these two measures into the sales table. The join is done using the common key between the two tables, which is the product ID. Now let's reload the script. At first we get an error because I mistakenly used order ID instead of product ID in the join condition. Since order ID is not the link between sales and products, Qlik cannot perform the join correctly. And also the column doesn't exist in the product table. Once we correct this, I reload once again, and now we have another issue, which is the synthetic key. This happens because the same measures still exists in both table, the sales table and the products table. To fix this, the solution is very simple. We drop the two measures fields from the product table. After this step, the synthetic key disappears and we end up with a clean performance star schema data model, exactly as explained at the beginning of the video. This is a great example of why data model cleanliness is so important in Qlik. Now let's move to data validation, which is a very important step. To validate our data, let's start by opening the data model viewer. This tool allows us to visually inspect our model and make sure everything is correct before moving forward. The first thing we want to check is whether the key that link our dimension table to the fact table are distinct. This is essential because keys should always contain only unique value. To do this, we simply click on a table, for example, the product table, and inspect the key field, such as product ID. Here's what we look at: the density, which is 100%, the subset ratio, the has duplicates, which should be true or false. In our case, false, which is a good sign. The total distinct value, which is 6, and the present distinct value is 6. So we have only unique value in our column. These indicators tells us that there is no duplicates, which is a very good sign. It means the key is clean and the relationship with the fact table is correct. After validating the key, we also need to check the measures we created. For example, we can verify that profit margin value look logical, total are correct, the number are displayed as expected with the format expected. Data validation may seem simple, but it is one of the most critical steps. It ensures that our application is reliable and that users can trust the insights they see. Once this is done, you're ready to move on to the visualization layer. Now let's move to data visualization layer. First, we'll create a new sheet. Before adding any objects, I like to adjust the application appearance because I'm not a big fan of the default gray color, so I go with the app appearance setting and change the theme to QlikSense Classic. I prefer it because of the clean white background, which makes dashboard easier to read. Next, I'll start by adding filters. These filters are exactly the ones we discussed at the beginning of the video, based on the business requirements, month, year, region, and product category. I'll add one filter object and then save it as a master item. This is a very good practice because it allows you to reuse the same filter across multiple sheets without recreating it each time. It saves time and keeps the application consistent. I highly recommend doing this. Now let's move to our first KPI. The first measure is the total number of unique customers. To create this, I'll add a KPI object and use the expression count distinct customer ID. I'll label this KPI customer so it is clean and easy to understand for users. Next, I'll create the revenue trend over time. For this, I'll add a line chart dimension, month, and measure total revenue. You may notice that initially we only have 1 month of data, which is not very realistic, so I adjust the data to include 3 months just to make the trend more meaningful for demonstration purposes. Finally, I'll take some time to format the visualization, adjust number format, define color using master item, modify chart settings such as line thickness, point size, and value display, customize the title color to improve readability and visual impact. These small adjustments make a big difference in user experience and help turn a dashboard into a professional e-board. Now let's move to the third business requirement, which is to identify the top and bottom performing regions. To do this, we'll add a bar chart. For the chart configuration, we will be having region as a dimension, total revenue as a measure. Since total revenue was already created as a master item, we can simply reuse it here. This is another great advantage of using master measures: consistency and time saving. Next, I'll add a clear and descriptive title: total revenue performance across regions. To improve readability, I adjust the access setting and choose to display labels only. This helps avoid redundant informations and keeps the chart clean. I also define the colors in master items so the same color logic can be reused across different charts in the application. And that's it for this chart. With this bar chart, users can immediately identify the best and the worst performing regions exactly as required by the business. Finally, let's add the last chart, which focuses on identifying the most profitable or the highest volume products. This is a key visualization for strategic decision making as it helps the business quickly see which products drive the most value. The goal here is to identify the top 10 best selling products based on the net sales measure. To do this, we'll add a bar chart for the configuration, measure net sales, I'll label it net sales, and save it as a master item so it can be reused later. Dimension, product name. Next, I'll change the bar chart orientation to horizontal, which makes the product name easier to read, especially when we have multiple items. I'll also adjust the sorting settings so the chart is sorted by net sales from the highest to the lowest. This allows us to clearly identify the top 10 products. Then I'll add a clear title, best selling products. Finally, I'll make a few small adjustments to the layout and formatting of the e-board to keep everything clean, readable, and visually balanced. And with this, we fully responded to the business requirement using clear, simple, and effective visualization. And that's it. Today we went step by step through creating a Qlik application, starting from the script editor, building a clean star schema data model, and finally designing visualizations that respond perfectly to the business requirements. We've seen how to load and transform data, prepare measures and dimension tables, avoid synthetic key, and keep a performant model, build KPIs, line charts, and bar charts to answer business questions. In the next video, we'll dive deeper into data validation technique to make sure your application are fully accurate and also show some design tip and tricks using Qlik Cloud capabilities to make your dashboard even more professional and user friendly. If you enjoyed this step by step guide, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. See you next time on Qlik Tips.